reports for BBC radio programmes. She's a keen activist and a Remain voter in 2017. She wrote a love letter to Europe, which was published on the cover of The National. So I'd like to give a really big welcome to Sarah. Thank you.
Hiya. I think I'm the smallest. Okay. I'm thinking we're probably Europe's soggiest capital today. Thank you so much for coming out. It's such an important cause. As you said, on Valentine's Day 2017, I wrote a love letter to Europe, which was published on the front page of the national newspaper. And I'm still in love with Europe. I believe in choice. I believe in consent. And we have been taken out of the European Union without our consent. And there is a price for that. An economic price, not only for businesses, but for every single household in our country. And there's a human price. I have many friends who came to Scotland, fell in love here, studied, got jobs, contributed to the life of our country, and they are now in a less secure legal position, a less happy one. They chose Scotland by inclination. But for those of us who were born here, Westminster's assault on human rights we enjoyed, the freedom of movement, the opportunities for our kids, makes me just as angry. I'm so angry. We all know that the EU isn't perfect, right? But all I can do is point to what is going on in Westminster. The arrogance of it, the anti-democratic nature of it, the cloth-ear unfairness of the fact that Scotland as a country has voted consistently to have a choice not to be part of it. And again, we've been ignored. The actress Katie Brand this week called the UK Parliament a soft play area for egomaniacs. And that's what we've come to. The Tory party has shown itself inept, riven with factionalism, contemptuous of the rule of law, and exhausted of credible economic ideas. And we didn't vote for them either. And the UK's Labour Party repeated insertions that there will be no return to the single market forever, no freedom of movement forever, and no independence referendum in the foreseeable future show that they too do not offer us what we seek. To be absolutely clear, there is no fix for this utter shambles. Not some imaginary unity candidate, not Johnson, obviously, not a general election, not a Labour government. Brexit is the cause, and it will go on and on and on and on for us until Scotland can choose its own path. I'm a trauma survivor. Many, many women are. I fear not being able to escape, always. But I'm going to fight tooth and claw to make the case that we have to get out of this. Yes. I'm sick of hearing that someone once said that our choice was once in a generation. Democracy is not a once in a generation event. And I'm sick too of being told that promise has to be kept when every single commitment made by the Better Together campaign has been broken over and over. At this time, when there is war in Europe once more, the idea that we are not standing absolutely shoulder to shoulder is simply unacceptable. We in Scotland did not seek this parting of the ways. We in Scotland seek to return to a shared vision, a different, better union. There is much that joins us. So many people here who I know don't see boundaries, but see bridges. In my love letter 5 years ago, I said, Europe, we have explored you for centuries, sent our people and welcomed yours. We have wrapped our tongues round your words, my love, and made new words together. Built ships, flown planes, raced cars. We sent you our whiskey in exchange for your wine. We've learnt from and we've taught each other. We've listened and we've spoken. We've been inspired by your brilliance and touched by your elegance. I still feel that. Love is not only a noun, it's a verb, and we must act. So please, be brave, be bold, and believe in better days. I'm a writer, I'm a creative, and I know that if we dream differently, we can make change. We are loitering on the threshold here and now, and we have to raise our voices and say that we choose to belong. There was a time half a century ago when Paris was a different city and Berlin built a wall. Europe has changed, the world has changed, but we are still Europeans. It's time for independence for Scotland. My friends, it's time for us to return. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. That was just absolutely lovely. And if you're not familiar with Sarah's books, do have a look. She has written loads of books and they're brilliant. So do have a look for her books. And our next speaker, if I can introduce her, is Martha Matos Coelho. She is a New Scot. She's from Portugal originally, but like so many other folk that have come from other countries to Scotland, she likes it so much she has stayed. And so she's a lovely New Scot. She's also a new councillor with Edinburgh City Council. And she's very active. She's an active member of Yes for EU, which we're delighted about. So, Martha, don't be shy.
I think it's okay. Thank you. Yeah, Morag was joking. I'm not shy. Right, far from it. So, I'll make this short and sweet, but I have to ask you a favor, and that's why I'm here today. I usually introduce myself as a very proud New Scot, and I'm here today, as Morag said, as a Yes for You activist, and not as an SNP member. I'm here as a New Scot, and not as a councillor. You have already heard and will hear from some very passionate people that have made so much impact in the Yes campaign. Marie-Joan, that like me, is from that little tiny country that most Brits only seem to need to know the south slice called the Algarve. I'll admit that we'll be hearing soon, and whose speech, passionate speech in Brussels to keep the light on for us. We need you back in Brussels as soon as we can. Yay. From Gordon McIntyre camp, who through Believing Scotland has brought so much light to what we deserve. Well, better, why we need to be an independent country. Sarah Sheridan, who I already told that I didn't know much about her, but I'm thrilled for what I'm here, so I need to follow you more. And we'll be soon hearing as well from my colleague and New Scot, Jules Bondell. Here we are welcome for our contribution to the society, for the fact that we live, work and raise our family here, for the virtue of being here, not by our passport or where we were born. We non-British are at the moment roughly 7.5% of Scotland. This is according to stats, 7.5% of Scotland's population. This is according to stats from 2021. This means roughly 409,000 people, from which 231,000 are EU nationals and 63,000 live here in Edinburgh, my home. However, when we're out in stalls with Yes for You, I do tend to try to approach New Scots, and they're very surprised. Some don't feel they should vote here. And I ask, do you live here? Do you work here? Do you raise your family here? They say, yes, it's your country then. Some others say they are not citizens, meaning they're not British. Well, I do explain to them and think they can't vote. I explain to them, refer them to the April's bill that made everyone that lives in Scotland over 16 and legally living here, can vote. Because we have a voice. Most read the news on the BBC and other similar channels and don't understand there's a difference from us and down south. I have organized several events and hosted several online events regarding this, making foreign nationals and new Scots aware that they can vote. However, I believe the message is going to be stronger at the doorstep. And this is why I need to ask you a very, very big favor. When you're out campaigning, reach out to new Scots. When you're out in stalls, reach out to new Scots. Make them aware that they matter. They do, and sometimes don't know that. So the message that's passing from Westminster, who unfortunately has been showing otherwise. So make them see that and make also them see, and this is a trick for you, that if we become an independent Scotland, most countries will have to have consulates or embassies here. So all the issues they have to renew their documents, if not sorted, they will almost sort it. So that's a good tip for you all. Let's be clear. I'm not saying that all new Scots vote for independence, but they have a choice. Remember, we were not allowed to vote for Brexit. Or, I assume, and most of you probably do as well, that the result would have been very, very different. What am I saying is that the ones that will vote, hopefully, in roughly a year from now, will make the difference. And maybe, hopefully, be the ones that will give Scotland everyone living here, the future we so desperately need and the outcome we so much deserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ooh, this microphone's a bit low now. Thanks very much, Martha. That was great. It's lovely to hear from Martha and other new Scots. Thank you. Who are making successful lives here in Scotland and feeling welcome, according to what they say, which is great. Just before the next speaker, I want to mention you may have received one of these flyers, Time for Scotland. So this is about the rally at Holyrood, which will happen on the day of the verdict from the Supreme Court. If you followed that recently, you'll know that it's about whether the Supreme Court will decide that Holyrood has the power to call a referendum, an independence referendum. And we don't know which way it will go. Whichever way it goes, the verdict is important for us. So lots of people will be gathering at Holyrood on the day it happens. And that will be a weekday, and it will be a gathering at, I think, about 5 in the evening. So if you've got one of these flyers, fine, it shows you the information, it's got a QR code, it's got the website. You can sign up and get alerts. If you sign up, you'll get an email telling you the arrangements within maybe 24 hours or maybe 48 hours if we're lucky. But anyway, if you haven't got a flyer, just look for Time for Scotland. It will come up on Google. So thanks for that. That'll be probably in a few weeks' time. Hopefully not too long. Right, so our next speaker is Eula Bandel, Councillor Eula Bandel, who is another new Scot, and she is from Germany originally. She's a Scottish Greens councillor for Inverleith Ward. She was elected just earlier this year, so congratulations on that. She's a member of several committees on the council as well, and she represents the council on the Transport for Edinburgh board. She arrived in Scotland from Germany in 2016, originally to study, and found she liked it and has stayed. She's been a climate activist since she was in high school. And another issue she's passionate about is housing. She describes herself in her Twitter profile as a pesky little immigrant. All right, would you like to come up And thank you very much for speaking to folk. Thank you very much. Thank you for that lovely introduction. When I was writing the speech on Thursday, I made a post on Twitter saying that I felt like nothing I could say could be more convincing of the need to become independent and rejoin the EU than just vaguely gesturing at Westminster, and then, as if to stress the point, 10 minutes later Liz Truss resigned as Prime Minister. But I will try, because ridiculous as this clown show of the UK government may be, we cannot forget, as the Tories cling to power by dragging themselves into yet another leadership contest instead of doing the democratic thing and calling a general election. The consequences for people and planet are very, very real. We are facing a cost of living crisis, a climate crisis, and a nature crisis. Like Prime Ministers, they are really adding up these days. And unfortunately, the Tories are not simply content to simply be really incompetent at fixing these crises, they are actively making them worse. One thing Liz Truss' government did manage to achieve within her 44 days in office was to publish a mini-budget that threatened our natural environment so much that it had the RSPB ringing the alarm bells and publicly calling it an attack on nature. The same month, Jacob Rees-Mogg, possibly the most Tory to ever Tory, introduced a bill to amend and scrap hundreds of laws we retained from the EU, including regulations which protect some of our most vulnerable wildlife and green places across the UK. The Tories will call this cutting red tape, getting rid of unnecessary bureaucracy. But let's call it what it really is: dangerous deregulation that puts profit before people. Thank you. That pesky tape was there for a reason. It protected us from untreated sewage in our seas and on our beaches, from harmful contaminants in our food, and from businesses who would only be too happy to sacrifice the well-being of their workers if it means just making a little more profit. If Westminster rips up these EU laws, we will see a race to the bottom. Polluters will be able to get further away with poisoning our rivers and our countryside, whilst gutting the rules that protect our most valuable wildlife sites. And greedy corporations will be able to exploit their workers even further. Of course, this was only the latest chapter in Brexit's damaging legacy. We don't talk about it much anymore, but we feel the impact of that vote when we try to do our shopping and are met with empty shelves where vegetables should be. When I was an undergraduate here at the University of Edinburgh, I had a big, vibrant group of European friends from loads of different countries, and it makes me really sad to know that students currently studying here don't have that same opportunity for cultural exchange anymore. Some impacts of Brexit are less obvious. As I was mentioned in my introduction, I'm a transport spokesperson for my group, so a big part of my job is trying to get people to use more environmentally friendly modes of transport, like walking and wheeling and cycling and taking the bus. But recently I've been getting a lot of emails from people whose bus services have been axed, one of them the Lothian 42 service in my own ward. So I went to Lothian Buses and I asked them why they were withdrawing so many buses, and there are many reasons. But do you want to know one of them? Shortage of drivers, because so many of their EU staff left after Brexit. Scotland didn't vote for this. We knew that we were better off as part of the European Union, but again and again, decisions have been made over our heads, whether we reject them or not. I don't know if other EU nationals have made the same experience, but in my experience, when I go back to Germany, Germans are very interested in Scottish independence. It's always one of the first questions that I get asked when they found out that I live in Scotland. Oh, what's your opinion on independence then? And they tend to be really confused when I tell them that I'm in favour, and so is my entire party. Why do the Greens support Scottish independence? Isn't that all about nationalism? Germans don't like nationalism very much, which is understandable, but okay. But they are confused because they always ask, what does independence have to do with green issues? And my answer is usually, we want a fair and green Scotland. But how can Scotland be fair and green when Tory governments in Westminster give tax breaks to the biggest polluters?
How can we be climate leaders when the UK government keeps approving new licences for oil and gas in Scotland, like the Cambo and Rosebank oil fields off the coast of Shetland? Again, regardless whether we reject them or not. Last year, just before COP, Alistair Jack, the Secretary of State for Scotland, told us that it is foolish to think we can just run away from oil and gas. Foolish. What is foolish is extracting more oil and gas while brutal heat waves sweep the UK, while flooding took over 1,000 lives in Pakistan, destroyed whole villages in Germany, and already threatens my own constituents just down the road in Stockbridge. Climate change is already killing people. It has been killing people for years. It's already threatening our livelihoods, even here in Scotland. We know we can't trust the Tories on climate, or on anything really. And we don't have the time to wait for a Westminster government. We need action now. Alistair Jack is wrong. Our reliance on oil and gas is not inevitable. Much like scrapping environmental regulations, it is a political choice. A political choice impacting Scotland, which should be made by the people of Scotland. It's not too late to stop following that path into climate disaster that Westminster is leading us down to. I'm proud of everything the Scottish Government is already doing to tackle the climate crisis and the nature crisis in Scotland. From free bus travel to under-22s to record funding for wildlife, nature, recycling and active travel. But as a devolved government, there's only so much we can do. Only as an independent nation, Scotland would have the powers to be a leader in the transition to a zero-carbon economy. We can end subsidies and tax breaks for the oil and gas industry and instead realise Scotland's potential for offshore renewable energy and invest in a just transition that protects our livelihoods and economic well-being of our workers and communities. And yes, we can rejoin the European Union. Sometimes when I talk to people about our green vision for Scotland, they say things like, but what does it matter? We're such a small country, we're never going to make a difference. And yes, perhaps we are a small country. But climate change is a global issue that requires global solutions. It requires us to work across borders with other countries. And in Europe, there is no better institution to facilitate cross-border working than the EU. As a full member of the European Union, we could be working together with our European neighbours to lead the change and build a green, prosperous and fair Europe. We could safeguard workers' rights and the environmental standards that protect clean air, clean water, clean beaches, clean rivers, and push them to make even more progress. Scotland still has friends in Europe who will campaign alongside us. The newly elected co-president of the Greens EFA group, the wonderful Terry Reinke, actually spent a year abroad in Edinburgh and has been a huge supporter of Scotland rejoining the EU. And I know their group will do everything in their power to make sure an independent Scotland is welcomed back as a member state. In the Scottish Greens, we've always said that independence is a means to an end rather than an end in itself, and I think the same is true for EU membership. The end for me is a fairer, greener Scotland and a safe future on this planet for generations to come. To achieve that, we need the full set of levers for climate action, and we need a movement to work alongside us. In other words, we need an independent Scotland in the EU. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. So next we're going to have some music from Jerry Mulvenner.
Yay!
Yay!
Woo! Jerry! Stay for the music, guys. It's good.
Hello, everybody.
She's needing a seat somewhere.
I'm a new Scot as well. I came here in 1985. Moved into a lovely wee room up there on the Mound in the halls of residence. Very lucky start to my time in Edinburgh. Let's see now. See if this works. Can you hear my guitar coming out?
Yes.
Yeah. Really? That's good. I'm going to sing 3 songs. I'm going to cram them into me 10 minutes. Okay. One's from Ireland, one's from England, and the last one's one I wrote last night.
Yay!
That's from Scotland, I suppose. I need a capo for this one. Woo. This is called Dignity and Backbone which is what we need as a sovereign people.
Yay!
There's no cavalry coming over Vinegar Hill. These boots I must stand in, other boots I must fill. We see the ways of greed. I've done my share. We've got to pull together now, or we'll be going nowhere. To be a sovereign people, it's not determined by finance. It's how we are with each other, how we work, how we play, how we sing, and we dance with dignity and backbone. Dignity and backbone. This world is achingly beautiful, and it's as fragile as me. It's only in the love of her that my spirit will be free. It's not about where I come from as much as where I want to go. I want to be the future. Where I'm planted, I will grow. To be a sovereign people, it's not determined by finance. It's how we are with each other, how we work and we play and we sing and we dance with dignity and backbone. Dignity and backbone. Dignity and backbone. Dignity and backbone. Thank you. No, I'll be fine. I'll just get wet. I think we were promised a sing along, so this one's good for singing along. The chorus has got 4 lines. I'm going to sing the first 3, and then you have to sing back at me. That's enough. And I won't take it personally. And so the chorus goes. That's enough, Brian. Times are tough. Times are tough. That's enough. That's enough. That's it. Times are tough. Times are tough. That's enough. That's enough. That's it. Lovely. They keep throwing fairy dust into our eyes. They keep throwing fairy dust into our eyes. They keep throwing fairy dust into our eyes. Times are tough. Times are tough. That's enough. Times are tough. Times are tough. That's enough. That's enough. Lovely. They keep spinning those old alibis. They still keep spinning those old alibis. They still keep spinning those old alibis. Times are tough. Times are tough. That's enough. That's enough. Times are tough. Times are tough. That's enough. That's enough. I can't get a job. I can't pay the rent. We can't feed ourselves because the money's all been spent. Well, it's pie in the sky and the same old lies come round again, round again, round again. But we still keep falling for the same old lies. We still keep falling for the same old lies. We still keep falling for the same old lies. Times are tough, times are tough, that's enough.
That's enough.
Times are tough, times are tough, that's enough.
That's enough.
But we better not make a scene. Oh, let's not make a fuss. 'Cause there's one of you, and 99 of us. With a little sleight of hand, you change the law of the land. We're screwed again, screwed again, screwed again. They keep throwing fairy dust into our eyes. They keep throwing fairy dust into our eyes. They keep throwing fairy dust into our eyes. Times are tough, times are tough, that's enough.
That's enough.
Times are tough, times are tough, that's enough.
That's enough.
Times are tough, times are tough, that's enough.
That's enough.
Brilliant, well done everybody. Ooh, right, one last song here. This one's called Time for Scotland.
Yay!
That's the ambulance coming for the UK. It's time for Scotland. Woo! Time for Scotland. Woo! Time for Scotland. It's time for Scotland. It's time for Scotland. It's time to grasp opportunity. It's time for Scotland. It's time to embrace normality over and over, the whole world over. As I say, I wrote it last night. Over and over, the whole world over, nations stand up on their own 2 feet. We're no exception to change our direction. It's time to take control of the driving seat. It's time for Scotland. Time to show our ingenuity. It's time for Scotland. It's time to take this opportunity. Over and over, the whole world over, nations stand up on their own 2 feet. We're no exception, so to change direction, it's time we took control of the driving seat. It's time for Scotland. Woo! 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 Bella, Bella! Bella Caledonia, behold the nation of your imagination. It's yours. It's time for Scotland. Woo-hoo! 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 Let's get in there. Thank you all.
What a guy.
Thank you very much, Jerry. That was really good, and your new song is amazing. Thank you. It's definitely time for Scotland. So next, we have our last speaker, who's Alan Smith, who's an SNP Member of Parliament for Stirling. He's been the MP for there since 2019, when he replaced the previous very short-lived MP Tory. He's SNP spokesperson on foreign affairs at Westminster, and he's a highly experienced in European and international affairs, as he was a member of the European Parliament from 2004 to 2019 when the UK left the EU. In his final speech to his fellow MPs, as Martha spoke about earlier, he said about Brexit, independence will be our only route back to the EU. I'm asking you to leave the light on so we can find our way home. So put your hands together for Alan. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Folks, thank you to Yes for EU for the invitation. Thank you to all of you for coming out today. I couldn't not be here. The most dangerous place in Scotland is, after all, between me and a European flag. I don't want to be close to any of them. And after a week at Westminster, I have to say thank you for some positivity in my day. I really needed it. Because anyone who thinks that the UK is doing well right now really isn't paying attention. And I say that with no malice and some sadness. I don't wish the UK a bad time. I don't wish the UK harm. But I do want to see Scotland independent back in the European Union. And we've tried since 2016. The SNP, the Greens, various members of the Labour, Conservative even parties have tried to find solutions. But what's happening in the UK right now, the political chaos and instability that we are seeing, is because all three of the UK's main parties have accepted the big lie. The big lie that Brexit was somehow worth doing. The big lie that Brexit had benefits. And you've got otherwise intelligent people having accepted that big lie are vulnerable to all the others. And we've just seen the departure of our latest Prime Minister. And I tell you, as they're looking for the next one, if the answer to the question is Boris Johnson, we're asking the wrong question. So I'd say in solidarity to all our friends and brothers and sisters down in London on the Rejoin EU march tonight, a shout out for them. I want to see the UK back in the EU as well. Because that European solidarity that I was part of when I did a proper job in the European Parliament, I was a legislator for 500 million people, proudly representing Scotland, finding common cause with our friends and our allies. It was Franz-Walter Steinmeier, the German federal president, said in an address in Strasbourg, the European Union is based on a revolutionary concept that your opponent might have a point. Is that not the politics we want to see in this country as well?
Yes!
It is assuredly not the politics we're seeing at Westminster. And as I say, I wish England well. I was at Leeds University, Nottingham Law School, worked in London as a lawyer. I want to see England do well. But the reality is, until we accept that Brexit was sold by frauds and egged on by dupes and cowards, that Brexit has made us all poorer, that Brexit has taken away our rights, that Brexit has impoverished the next generation, all the chaos we see now is back to that original lie, the big lie in UK politics. And it grieves me. It grieves me, and I'm deeply proud to be a member of the most pro-EU party in these islands. The Labour Party's with their Make Brexit Work slogan has sold the pass, and it grieves me to say it. And that's why I think independence for Scotland back into the European Union will be a boost for progressive politics within the UK as well. Because for me, independence is not about the flags, much as I love the flags. It's not about the old songs or the anthems or the old battles or the old stories or the identity. We've got all that now. You can be proudly Scottish and proudly British. That's up to you. No. Independence for me is about the future. Independence for me is about democratic accountability. Independence for me is about the fact that the people of Scotland should be in charge of our destiny and should be making cause with our friends in the European Union. And when I say the people of Scotland, I am so deeply, deeply proud that our national parliament down the road there in Edinburgh legislated to change voting entitlement in Scotland from nationality to residence. Because our definition of Scottish from the bottom of my soul is if you're here, you're one of us. Where you're from's your story. If you're here, you're part of our community now, and you're part of our community into the future. And let's build that better community together with independence in Europe. Thanks very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Alan. That was a great speech. Made lots of really important points there. Couldn't have said it better myself. So we're nearly finished now. We're ahead of time, surprisingly, because normally speakers, it's quite hard to get speakers to keep to the times, but they've all done very well today. So we are hoping to see our piper. We have a piper who's going to play us out in a moment or two. And until the piper arrives, all I want to say is thank you very much. Thank you for coming along in spite of the weather. So thanks for coming out, and thanks for being such a positive audience and cheering us on. So again, sign up for Time for Scotland. I mentioned it earlier. There's still time, I think, to get your photo in the selfie frame if that's coming round. Pick up some flyers. Sign up to. Oh yeah, well yeah, join us, actually join us, join Yes3U. We're not hard to find online. Join us, members are welcome, it's free, and we're very active. If you're interested in active campaigning, then join us, and there's plenty to do. Okay, so is that it? Is that us now?
So thank you to all of you for coming out in the rain. I know that some of you have come far and wide, so thank you very much for travelling to Edinburgh. And yes, follow Yes3EU on Twitter. Please keep reposting any pictures you've taken from today. Repost with the hashtag, which Maura gave you. ND2 Rejoin EU. Keep posting on social media. Follow us. We're on Twitter at Yes3EU. We're on Facebook at Yes3EU, and our website is yes3eu.scot. And Instagram. Sorry. Thank you very much. And we're going to have a piper now to pipe us out.
Yay!
Good stand.
Hello. I'm going to finish with the Els Segadors, which is the anthem of the Catalan movement.
Oh, I forgot my umbrella somehow.
Did you?
Thanks, Jen. Come here. That was brilliant. I love your song. Bye. Jerry. You guys don't want to go for a pint?
We're planning to capital session 3 to 6. Yeah.
Okay.
Alex York's doing session today.
Okay, let me just find my person.
We'll probably get some grub before we get there. So at some point...
Oh, there's the chair. Okay, thanks. Okay, everybody, that's the end of it. So thanks for being with us. And I think there were some good speeches there. And despite the rain, there was a lot of people here. So thanks for watching. Bye from Weekend. Love you guys.